Traveling is one of the most incredible gifts that life has to offer. There's no better feeling than going out to explore a new location and discovering the beauty of the world beyond our own backyards. And over the past year, I've been fortunate enough to travel every month, even if it's only for a weekend getaway. Traveling can also be one of the most transformative experiences one can undergo. Because we are thrust into a new environment, it creates challenges that we would otherwise not face in our lives. But once we figure out ways to overcome those challenges, it can create valuable lessons that can be applicable to other areas of our lives. I wanted to quickly recap each trip with a takeaway or a lesson from each one, as well as share a favorite image or two from each trip. So in July of 2022, I did a quick weekend warrior trip with my cousin Caitlin, my younger sister Jessica, and her boyfriend Brenton. We did a bunch of touristy stuff, mostly just the basic sightseeing in Hilo and Kona, and I didn't engage in too much serious landscape photography until the last day, where I woke everybody up early to drive up to the sacred Pololu Valley, a previous spot that I had visited but got completely skunked on conditions-wise. But this particular morning we got some incredible morning light. We had a beautiful pre-burn glow over the ocean and some majestic morning light that followed once the sun came up. We then visited some family members buried in that nearby area, and I couldn't help but feel their presence while shooting that incredible sunrise. You know that cheesy line from Lilo and Stitch?
Ohana means family. Family means nobody
gets left behind
or forgotten.
Well, that quote kept playing through my mind the entire trip, because even though that there were family members that couldn't be there physically, it almost felt like everybody was there spiritually, especially my grandmother, who is from the Big Island and loves that area very much. A summer trip to Kauai with my girlfriend Kylie has been an annual thing for a while now. So in August of 2022, we pretty much did the exact same thing. We visited the same areas that we had in the past. I didn't feel like making another travel video because I had pretty much done all of that previously. So I decided for this trip to kind of relax a little bit on the video side of things and be more present with Kylie, which I think she really appreciated. It also helped me more vividly remember the moments that we did experience because I wasn't so focused on filming a vlog. Sometimes we have to remember to put the camera down in order to take in all the beauty that's around us. So the best shot for this trip has to go to the incredible vibrant sunset that we got on our first day here at Hanalei Pier. Still, to this day, I have not seen a better sky from this area. For my entire life, I was under the impression that I didn't need to travel to other locations because I already live in the most incredible, beautiful place in the world, in Hawaii. But as I got more into photography and through social media, I discovered that, yeah, there's some stuff that are out there that Hawaii doesn't have, so it is worth exploring. So in September of 2022, I booked an insane trip to the US mainland. Yeah, we call it the mainland because we're from little islands out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But we started off in Vegas, doing 5 days in the desert with my friend Justin, exploring all the national parks that surrounded Las Vegas. I then took a very scary solo trip to San Francisco, and it was scary because in my mind, at least, there was all this crime against photographers, people stealing camera gear and all of that. But it ended up being okay. I then met up with Walt in Yosemite. We shot there for a few days and then ended our trip exploring the Oregon coast. There were many lessons that I learned from this crazy trip, but the main takeaway from this entire trip as a whole is that the world is filled with so much more beauty than just what's here in the Hawaiian Islands. I still think and I still believe that our islands are the most beautiful place to be, like if I had to compare them all. But there are definitely other areas that are worth exploring and worth photographing. The best shot from this entire trip, and it was really hard to decide because we got some incredible conditions in each particular location, but it has to go to this incredible sunset that we got on the beach that overlooks the Golden Gate Bridge. As I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of anxieties that I had to overcome when shooting in San Francisco, and the sunset capped off those anxious few days, and it almost felt like Mother Nature was rewarding me for overcoming those fears. As the month of September of 2022 was so insane, we skipped out on traveling for October of 2022, but picked it right back up the following month in November, where we took a big photography group trip to the Big Islands. We photographed the sunsets at the Kona Drains for a couple of days, but the best shot from this trip had to have been the lunar rainbow or the moonbow that appeared to us as we were photographing the active volcano of Kilauea. I was a little bit nervous to hang out with a new group of photographers and to meet them, but we ended up really clicking and really getting along, and this would kick off a series of further group trips with this particular group of friends. Now, I'm not saying to go out and travel with any random person that you meet online, but be open to new opportunities that can flower new friendships, because those friendships can blossom into something beautiful. And traveling with those other people can make the experience a lot more memorable for everybody involved, as well as make things a lot cheaper. Throughout our November trip, we discussed the rumbling that was going on the summit of Mauna Loa. And the following month in December, she finally did erupt. I quickly booked another weekend trip and bummed it out in my car for a few days, but it was totally worth it because we got some incredible shots of this eruption. Now, I do like all of the images captured at night because the eruption basically lit up the entire sky. I think my favorite shot had to be the sunrise shot of the eruption from Mauna Kea, with a hint of snow in the foreground on Mauna Kea, but some pink clouds glowing in the background. This trip taught me that sometimes in life you have to pull the trigger in order to capture those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, because who knows when Mauna Loa is going to erupt again. After the eruption ended at Mauna Loa, Pele took another break at Kilauea, but the following month in January of 2023, she roared back to life. I booked another weekend trip with my girlfriend Kylie, and I was surprised that I ended up just staying up all night photographing from dusk until dawn. And it really started the shift in my photography to expand my portfolio to include more nighttime scenes. And yeah, this trip taught me that if I put my energy to things, I really can pull off these all-nighter missions that I previously considered to be impossible. The favorite shot from this trip had to have been this shot looking directly down into the caldera of Kilauea. It almost feels like I am staring directly into the eye of Madame Pele herself. In February of 2023, we booked a group trip to the beautiful island of Kauai. I was excited and eager to show all of my friends around an island that I have been so familiar with because of my travels with Kylie, but we didn't get that great of conditions for the entire trip. So I was forced to creatively look for different things and try to focus on images that were less iconic and less obvious. I ended up actually shooting more wildlife than I originally thought. And the best shots have to have been either this beautiful shot of the nene goose with the afternoon light creating magical bokeh in the background, or this albatross in flight. The moral of this trip is that sometimes the iconic and big grand landscape shots don't always work out, especially if you don't get the conditions that you want. So it's important for us as photographers to be open and react to what Mother Nature throws at us, be ready to photograph those lesser iconic images in order to make the most out of every single trip. As a nurse that works 3 12-hour shifts a week, that gives me 4 days a week to do pretty much whatever I want. So if I strategically schedule myself, I can work 4 days in a row and be off for almost a week. And in March of 2023, I did just that. I worked 4 days in a row and booked a week-long trip up to Portland with Kylie. Now, I was eager on this trip to shoot Mount Hood again, but every sunrise that I got up for, the clouds were completely covering the top of Mount Hood and I wasn't able to get a shot. In addition to that, the stress of working those 4 days, as well as the stress of traveling, really tired me out and I ended up catching COVID. I took it as a sign from Mother Nature that I was probably doing a little too much and vowed to use the time that I was going to be off of work to rest and relax and recharge. It's so funny because the favorite image that we captured from this trip is this beautiful shot of Mount Hood with the alpine glow. But it's funny because it came at a time in our trip where I wasn't actually looking to shoot sunset, but when the clouds opened up, I couldn't pass up this incredible opportunity. For the month of April, I tried to get a few friends to come to the Big Islands with me, but unfortunately, all of those plans fell through. So I decided to just take a solo trip and booked everything myself. I decided to dedicate this trip to photographing the elusive Hawaiian short-eared owl, or the pueo. I rented the 600mm G Master lens and pretty much spent every opportunity that I could driving up and down the road to try and photograph these owls. I did get a few pretty decent shots, but none of them really satisfied what I was originally going for. I had actually given up all hope, and as I was driving back to the airport, I spotted one perched on a pole, and it did allow me to photograph it in this beautiful morning light. This was the hardest that I had ever worked for any sort of photograph, and I'm so happy that all of the hard work paid off. For the month of May, I actually decided to use 3 weeks of vacation time off of work. I started this first week of my vacation in San Francisco with my girlfriend Kylie. Photographically, I struggled because the weather wasn't quite what I was envisioning. And that led me to kind of just say, you know what? this trip is not going my way. I'm just going to use it to again focus on my girlfriend Kylie. I then followed up that trip with meeting up with Darwin and Lummi to hijack their family road trip up to Utah. Now this trip was probably the most fun of all of the entire trips because we pretty much just spent all night photographing the Milky Way, staying up until sunrise, and then sleeping during the day and then waking up again to photograph sunset. And our diets were so bad, we just ran to any random place that we could to get food, and the focus was pretty much all photography. The best astrophotography shot that we got from this trip had to have been this Milky Way rising over Chimney Rock in Capitol Reef National Park. This area has almost zero light pollution, so the Milky Way looked absolutely incredible. Because we were hopping from national park to national park, there was very little time to plan out what we were going to do. And that mistake came back to bite us in the butt when we almost got stuck in a river in Capitol Reef National Park. I bet you that next time we're gonna have everything planned out to a T, and we make sure that we have a 4-wheel drive when we return to Utah next year. My favorite sunset shot had to have been this shot from Canyonlands National Park, where we watched the sunset set over Candlestick Rock. Lummi and Diano wanted to photograph this location in Utah but had no idea where it was. And because I had learned my lesson from Capitol Reef, I was able to do research, find it, and we got there just in time to shoot the sunset. In June, I again attempted to make travel plans with friends that ultimately fell through. So once again, Darwin and Lummi allowed me to hijack another family trip to Maui. But a few days before that trip was set to take off, Kilauea erupted once again. So I booked a quick trip over there to photograph the eruption for a couple of nights, and I ended up capturing a few images of the Milky Way with Kilauea, which had always been a dream shot of mine to capture. I always discounted the island of Maui for landscape photography in particular. I always saw it as too crowded, too touristy, and too expensive to even be worth photographing. But because by now my portfolio had shifted into capturing more nighttime images, that meant I could get onto location at hours where nobody was there and still have a good time capturing these images. My two favorite images came from the late nights that we spent photographing the Milky Way here on the Valley Isle. Yeah, we went to the Big Island a lot over the past year, but in July, it was one of those months where we really had to be there on the Big Island. We spent this trip photographing the drains at sunset and then driving up to the Mauna to shoot the Milky Way. We even drove from Kona to Mauna Kea and all the way back to Kona because our plans to hike and photograph Lake Waiau for sunset fell through due to some bad weather. But this change of plans ended up working out because we captured a beautiful sunset, the best sunset that I've seen over these Kona drains, and later on that evening we ended up capturing the laser beams up at the top of Mauna Kea. So it ended up working actually in our favor. I usually like to plan things out, but this trip was a prime example on showcasing why it's important to read and react to what Mother Nature is throwing at you in order to create the best opportunities to photograph. I was still salty that we weren't able to hike to Lake Waiau, so the following month in August of 2023, Garrett and I booked a redemption mission to do just that. We were blessed with some incredible conditions and our redemption mission was very successful. In addition to that, we got to off-road to photograph these silver swords. Overall, just a very productive trip for photographing the Milky Way, and it just reinforces the power of photographic persistence. Not everybody in our photography group could attend the redemption mission, so right after we were finished in Big Island, we met up with everybody in Kauai. We were able to capture a couple of nice sunsets while we were up there, but not much else. I tried to spend and focus my energy more so on interacting with the variety of members in our photography group because I knew this would be the last trip for a while. Well, that's a wrap for a year of traveling. Man, I am tired just thinking about it. Even though it's been a few months since our last trip, I'm still tired thinking about how much traveling we did for one entire year. If you haven't watched all the travel videos, I've made a playlist for you so that you can catch up on all of the individual travel episodes. Now, looking forward to next year in 2024, I hope to do maybe less traveling. I want to focus more on the quality of those trips rather than the quantity of those trips. I already have a few planned out, so make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on any of our adventures. But I hope you have a safe and happy holidays, and we'll see you guys all next year, which will be in less than a week. See you guys. Peace out.